Okay, so this will be the material that we have for this class, and as we continue now, we want to situate you in lesson planning, and especially lesson planning for technology integration. And as we know, or I hope as you picked up, technology is not real strong unless we have good learning goals, good learning objectives to connect it with. And so now that we've kind of played around with math and things as we move into literacy, social studies, and science, we want to kind of situate you a little bit deeper into kind of the teacher way of doing things, and that would be writing learning objectives. Okay, so we are going to talk about kind of that lesson planning or planning a lesson. If you look ahead in the syllabus, don't worry about it right now, but I'll bring it up after our midterm. We do require you to write a lesson plan from scratch, basically, and you integrate technology. Now, we're giving you a lot of technologies that we've covered. You might know of some on your own, but in the end, you'll plan a lesson with technology. And so that's why it's important to kind of grasp the technology that we're using and try to find other technologies that you might find very useful in the classroom as well. So today what we want to do is we really want to kind of talk to you about like what is a learning objective. Learning objectives are usually always part of a lesson plan, and the approach that we're going to take to a learning objective in 201 I think is pretty similar to 245, 268. We might have a little bit of a different take, but it's not very much. I am taking kind of an old school approach to learning objectives because now as you're kind of situating yourself into becoming a teacher, into learning about content, pedagogy, and technology, I think situating you in kind of a model of very descriptive learning objectives is only going to help you. So we are going to use a format in which, by this definition, there's statements that describe what the learner is expected to achieve as a result of your instruction. So always keep that in mind. Objectives are built so that teachers can really articulate what they expect the students to learn, okay, as a result of going through the lesson or participating in that learning task or activity. So I think with a learning objective, it really helps teachers do the following: plan instruction, deliver instruction. Now, by deliver instruction here, I don't mean just like always just dispensing information, but again, think about the pedagogical approaches that you've seen in this class and other classes and everything. It's, not only you're planning instruction, again, you're thinking how you're going to deliver that, what's going to be your pedagogical approach, and now it's also, this is where we're going to start asking you to start thinking about the evaluation of the student, because objectives tie to evaluation. So this is a screen that you've seen repeatedly from Harris and Hofer, that grounded tech integration in terms of their planning cycle. So we're kind of back to that number one now. We've talked a little, before we talked about choosing learning goals in the context of content, okay? Well, now we're going to be really more specific and say, okay, learning goals are what are the objectives? What are students going to learn? Okay, what's the content you're going to teach, but also what do you expect the students to learn? Okay, and then how we're going to change this up now a little bit is now we're going to unselect number 4, and we're going to start talking about, okay, select your assessment strategies, or at least start to begin to articulate, this is what students are going to learn, and this is how I'm going to evaluate them as a result of taking them through that learning task. So I think you'll be able to kind of see how these fit here. And then, I mean, after we kind of get through this piece, you kind of have gone through this whole cycle, or in your head as you plan instruction, you choose the learning goals, which includes the content and what the students are going to learn, how they're going to teach it. Those activity types, again, that's kind of a technology thing within that. And that has been talked about in terms of our readings that have been assigned. Select the assessment strategies. Now, how am I going to know that they met their learning objective? And then select the tools, the resources that I need to teach the lesson. So it's just a process that will keep taking you through. So with the learning objective, as I said, we're going to go a little bit old school here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 parts of a learning objective. Conditions, behavioral verb, and the criteria. Okay, and again, you have the video, so you can stop this if you want to copy these down, but I'm going to explain them briefly here with their own slides. So the first one, conditions. So what this is doing is, this is usually a statement that describes the condition under which the behavior is to be performed, okay? Or what has happened that the learner has gone through, the condition that now they're ready to enact what they've learned or participate in what they've learned. So usually it specifies the circumstances, the commands, the materials, the directions that the student is given to initiate the behavior. Okay, it's usually a declarative statement, and here are possible examples that are listed on the or as examples that you can kind of work from. So it's always just, usually the conditions, it's the first thing that, the first part of your learning objectives. You write this statement first, okay? After viewing a photograph, the students will. Okay, so somehow in the lesson you had them viewing photographs, and now maybe they're going to do something with a literary passage or something, okay? Or, they have to compare and contrast. They have to infer something. So, you set the context. After finishing a math game on multiplication, given a literary passage, after watching a video, after reading a chapter in the textbook, after looking up weather maps in a newspaper, like what have they done to situate themselves in the learning context, okay? And sometimes that will have to do with, what have you taught them before and how have you set them up for the learning task, okay? So that's conditions, usually comes first. I'll give you an example here in a minute. Behavioral verb. This is probably what you're most familiar with. You've kind of grown up with this throughout your career in terms of your own career as a student. But what this is it's the action verb that suggests an observable behavior. So it's something that me as a teacher, I can see if the students are accomplishing it or not, okay? So for that reason, don't use words such as appreciates, learns, understands. I can't observe that. I really cannot observe if you understand something. Now, I'll use that loosely because I'll know if you understand something by maybe if I give you a test and what you've done on the test. But usually with a learning task, unless it's facial expressions or something like that, I have a hard time of really, how do I know if you appreciate what has been learned or whatever, okay? So what you want to do is you want to pick observable verbs, okay? I can see you compose a story. I can see if you define or I can hear if you define something correctly. I can see you demonstrate the ability to do something or to describe something. I can see how you diagram a scientific instrument or something like that. There's just different ways to do this. So I have also posted what I think is a very, very helpful cheat sheet on observable verbs, behavioral verbs to this. So please go look at that after. And it also has a column of like verbs that you don't use for that same reason. Others besides appreciates, understands, and learns. Okay, so I think that will be very helpful. The last thing is criteria. In the criteria, this is the last part, and this is the assessment piece. So it's the declarative statement that describes how well the behavior must be performed. So it gives us a clue on how you're going to assess it, but also how well the students will do. Will they get them all right? Will they get them 100%? Or will they do something else, the criteria that you've set? So here's an example from math using all three parts. So it's nice, it's short and sweet, which is great. Sometimes you can't quite get them that short and sweet, but this one is. So the condition was given a list of the first 100 numbers, so they were given a list. Then the student will identify, I can see them if they can identify at least 9 prime numbers. So my criteria is 9. They have to at least list 9 of them. Okay, so as you see this too, it's not like you have to color code your objectives, but some of you will do that maybe depending on how you can do it and how you can express it. But label the parts. Okay, we are going to ask that. I want to know what you think is the condition. I want to know what you think are the verbs or verb that's used, and then the criteria. So you should always have 3 parts to every objective that you write for us. Okay, so that's an example. One thing, I'll just put this up a little bit. Objectives are different from standards. We've been talking about standards all along. Now, standards will help you with objectives, but usually standards are written a little bit more broadly. So it isn't like you aren't going to get content, and you can't write an objective from a standard, but they are 2 different things. Okay, so and I kind of like to think standards are written for teachers. They're written to guide teachers on what is it that we should be teaching at that grade level, whereas objectives are written for students. What do we expect the student to do as a result of the instruction that we have given them? Okay, and as you know, we have links to the Common Core standards, the Iowa Core standards, and then there are standards to the other areas too. And you've already used some of those, but don't forget about them. We'll keep referring back to them. Okay, so with that, that's kind of the information on writing an objective, the things that we want you to kind of remember, and then open the next one, the video, and I will kind of show you what we want you to do, because obviously you're going to have to write an objective or 2 for us. Okay, so next video, please. Thank you.